camera, please. Sorry, I'm gonna. Okay. Yeah, if you can start with your name and what's your background?
So my name's Dave Taylor, and most of my career has been spent in the video game industry as a programmer and a designer and a producer. The big famous games were the original Doom and Quake back in the 90s that kind of popularized the first-person shooter genre. I've also worked in processor design. I've taught game production. I've done some representation of talent in the game industry. And I like to sit on a lot of advisory boards. Right now, I'm advising a couple of traditional game developers, what's called a serious game developer, a couple of entertainment companies, and 2 AI companies. And my last coding adventure was basically the CTO of a company called Blue Vishnu that does 3D full body scans for games and TV and event production and stuff. And now I'm sort of looking to break into the electroactive polymer space for my next engineering adventure. But yeah, I'm a giant hippie. I'm vegan. I got rid of my car. I don't fly anymore. I don't use heat or air conditioning. I walk around barefoot most places, except when I'm a guest. I go shod. Yeah, and so I started trying to get involved in the United Nations Association and their Sustainable Development Goals, because I feel like a lot of my time has been spent wasting other people's time playing games, not to put too fine a point on it, and I'd like to apply my skills more productively to saving the planet, hopefully.
What would you say is the kind of character overlap between your designing self and your environmental self, your hippie self?
Yeah. So I like to give talks on a subject I call vector money, which is a way to replace the shitty stuff in your pocket with something that I call that scalar money, SCALAR money, which is the idea of representing goods and services formally by a single number called the price or the wage, which to me is mathematically absurd because it destroys all this information at every transaction. And so sort of the rough equivalent would be taking a picture of myself and to show you what I look like, instead of sending you the picture.
1 second.
Yeah. Feedback. Feel like the band's about to warm up.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. So the equivalent would be taking a picture and instead of saying, "This is what I look like. Here's a picture of me," you would average all the pixels together down into one color, which would be sort of a muddy beige or something, and saying, "Yeah, muddy beige, that sums me up perfectly," right? It doesn't, right? There's a whole picture that you lost there. And the same thing happens at every transaction in an economic system. And so I've come up with this way that you can essentially gamify commerce and governance so that it's fun and so that it tracks all the information so that you can have a sustainable economy and sustainable governance that has way lower latency and higher reliability on regulation issues, and it's just cooler all around and more fun. So I think that's the crossover.
Well, I'm curious to know how that, could you tell us a little bit more about how that benefits the environment, this new vision for gaming, like gamifying commerce, and what ways is that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, here's an example. So like imagine you have a neighbor next door and she's got a bad hip, right? And so you offer to take her trash out because you don't want her to fall and hurt herself and go to the hospital, right? With scalar money commerce, to recognize for the value you're providing her to be recognized, you have to haggle with her and be like, "Hey, bitch, like $10 for me to take this shit out because otherwise your hip will be fucked up. You know, it's like, this is a creepy way to have a relationship with your neighbor, right? It's a charger for it. And so you do it because you're cool, and it's like karma, but karma doesn't pay the fucking rent. So with vector money commerce, one of the precepts is that basically because we have sensors all over the place anyway, why not just put them to work helping us out? So we use these sensors to recognize, hey, Dave just took out her trash. That saved a social worker from burning fuel to get there to help her do it, and then burning fuel to get back and getting paid. And I short-circuited the whole thing. I essentially created a microcosm local economy, like a super local economy of me and my neighbor, but where the value of that, because the sensors capture it, can be journaled, right? And then there's a mathematical operation called the dot product, which is, it's really cool and it's really fast to calculate for computers. And the way it works is if you take a direction and then you take another direction, the dot product will tell you how similar those directions are or how opposite they are. And if they're similar, sort of in the same direction, they'll be positive. If they're in the opposite direction, they'll be negative. And the more aligned they are, the bigger the dot product gets. And so what you can do is you can take these gigantic vectors of like million element vectors that represent the actual benefits and liabilities of the things you're doing for each other. And you can do dot products against the giant vectors of what other people want, right? Because an economy is a wish fulfillment system. We're trying to fulfill each other's wishes, right? So, so you can use this along with what's called a gradient ascent algorithm to essentially matchmake people and have them help each other in environmentally sustainable ways, because one of those vectors that you specify at a societal level is saying, hey, we want to be greener, we want to be local, we want fair trade, we want all these things. And so when you do those calculations, you will get dot products that are more positive when you're doing something more sustainable. It doesn't mean, depending on how you implement it, right? You could implement this in a creepy authoritarian way, or you could implement it in a super, libertarian way, or anything in between. But it's quite possible to implement it in a very sustainable, cool way that basically is a lot greener.
Can you talk about one more question?
Yeah.
So you're talking about the systems, and I think that's a really interesting way to look at this. And as someone, because you have a unique perspective on this, because you're a designer, literally of worlds in your past job, how do you make the idea of designing a system in a world based off of environmental consciousness? How do you make that graspable for the layman who have no idea, who always, systems are resistant to change, who are kind of relying on a system that's already in place? How do we put this in a way that they can understand and want to be a part of the system? Because that's how a system is formed, is that everybody wants to be a part of it and it behooves them to be a part of it. So can you talk about that?
Boy, is that the $1 million question. And hopefully we'll get rid of those dollar things.
Actually,
yeah.
quick, can you talk to Isaac? I'm going to just move.